Hi, and welcome to End of Season Garden Prep. This is another in the virtual workshop series, Gardening 101, which is sponsored by Healthy Brandon and the City of Brandon. I'm Melanie Hellier, Garden Coordinator at Hummingbird Community Garden and also a committee member of Healthy Brandon. Behind the scenes is Justine Friesen, who's the Recreation Programmer West with Parks and Recreation in the City of Brandon. Thanks, Justine, for filming and doing the editing for these videos. So with me today are my fellow garden coordinators at Hummingbird Community Garden, Brian and Paulette Fowle, and they're going to facilitate the workshop today and let us know what we need to do, the do's and don'ts, when we're prepping our garden end of season so that we have a great garden for the next upcoming season. So Brian and Paulette, what can you tell us about what we need to do with our garden at the end of the season?
Okay, first of all, congratulations to a successful season. We hope that you kind of do these things. First of all, we always till on the weekend of Thanksgiving. It's just one way we have of ending the garden. We want everyone's stuff off by that date. Okay, first of all, here, not picking on it, but structures. Okay, we ask that everything's removed from those structures, right down to things like the wire ties, string, plastic netting, that when we till it doesn't become a problem. And in that, when you removed all the structure, all this stuff can go back in. Like the pea plant has no problem at all. Just don't put it in a pile, but scatter it out. It can work right back into the soil, as well as the beans and everything else. Tomatoes and potatoes, we ask you to remove those for the simple reason is they can put a residual blight into the soil. Yes, you can work them in, but over time they will give you a problem. Different things, the squash, everything can go back into the soil. Everything you put into the soil, you'll get out of again. If you just keep taking all that stuff off, and we do have bins here for things that we did ask to take off, but if you keep putting it back in, it'll break down the mulch, it'll help your garden. Edging at the end, we like to see a clean edge. There's one back behind us here, but the idea that they'll do it so that when I come along with the tiller, it gives me a line and the tiller will go down into the ground. And we hope that you had a great season and we'll see you next year. It just makes it good for us to be able to clean it up at the end of the year. I didn't mention peat moss or leaves or grasses to put in. We tell people to save their grass trimmings as long as they don't use fertilizer or chemical, like weed chemical on your grass. You can put that into your garden, and if you have that in, spread around before I can work it in for you. The idea is please don't bring it after it's been tilled because it blows around.
So I have some questions for you. So I have some beets.
Yes.
So I can just take my beet tops and leave them like that? Or do I need to break them up and put them on the garden for you to till in?
Break them up the best you can. Don't leave them in a big pile. Okay. If you roll them over a few times, it'll work it in better.
Okay. So beets, peas,
Corn,
corn,
pumpkins, everything can go back in.
spread it out on a nice thin over top of your garden,
Yep.
and then till it.
Wait till it needs tilling. Yeah, yeah. The edging, you can just take a shovel along there and just keep the edge back. And we ask you to remove quackgrass.
Okay. What about portulaca? I see portulaca in the
I
garden.
never mentioned portulaca.
Should I just put it over here and then it'll be fine, or what should I do with that?
Well, first of all, portulaca you can eat, but it's a very bad weed. Portulaca, quackgrass is something you should carry off. Any weed in seed you should carry off. Okay. So we have the green bins here for the green waste. We also have garbage bins for garbage.
But portulaca, does it go in the garbage bin or does it go in the green bin?
It goes in the green bin. I asked, and they said it gets hot enough that it should kill it. Okay. Into saying that, maybe it should be taken home and put in just regular garbage.
Yeah.
Because you can hang it on a fence for a long time, it'll grow again.
It'll grow again. So it's one of those ones that you want to make sure that you take off the garden, maybe put it, tie it in a plastic bag so it doesn't spread,
Yeah.
and then put it into the black garbage bin or maybe even your garbage bin at home so that it doesn't spread.
I thank you for bringing that up.
Okay.
Right. See, I'm learning things.
Okay, and so we want to make sure that our garden is free of any wood or any steel, so that when we till it, we don't have that tilled into the garden.
Yeah.
And if we do all this, we're going to have a really luscious garden next year?
Well, we sure hope so.
Sure hope so. Okay.
As photos will show, we've done very well this year, and that makes a big deal. Back to the steel, we've tried to keep it out so much. We realize about tomato cages and things like that, but we were having things like rebar and nails and even pieces of pipe in the ground, which cause problems. We do find sometimes the garden utensils, not a complaint, but keep it at home.
So the more natural things you can put back into your garden, the better for the soil.
Yes.
And then probably less compost that you'll need or peat moss to put in the following year because you keep turning things back into the soil.
Yes. Everything you can put into that soil will help. Soil is a living thing. You want it to be aerated, you want it to have moisture that can hold moisture and all these things. And we find some people will just carry it off, but leave it in the best you can leave it in because it will help. Peat moss is a great thing, but as I say, the lawn trimmings are cheap. Your leaves off your trees are cheap, but you have to watch for chemicals. And that's about it. Everything you put in, you get out.
Well, that'll sure help us when we're preparing this fall.
Yep, and I'll be around a lot of that time, especially then. And like I say, it's not, you come get your garden the weekend of Thanksgiving, I till it.
Right. So get your garden cleaned off well in advance so you don't get things tilled in.
Well, we do pick them. We take them to the Samaritan house if there's too much. First of all, I guess we pick them and put them on the side, and then if no one shows up, we take them.
Okay, well that's a good use of those vegetables then.
Very much so.
Yeah, but the more you can leave back to have turned back into the soil, the less we have to take in the green bins and have taken away. So
Absolutely.
and better for the soil. So thank you. So that's really good information for those of us that garden at community gardens. But what about those of us that just have our gardens at home? I have raised beds, for example, and I know some of my friends have in-plot gardens at home. So same thing apply to us. Do we take off our potatoes and our tomatoes and throw them in our black bins at home so that they're off and away? And same with the portulaca. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And so then I have massive cucumbers and zucchini leaves and everything else. So I can just, once they're done, spread them nicely on my raised bed.
Let them dry up
let
a
them
little
dry
bit.
up, and then chop them up, or will they just?
You can chop them up the best you can now with a knife or with a shovel or even a hoe. As they dry, it'll, depending on the time of year, they'll break down.
Okay.
If you don't have a tiller,
I don't have a tiller.
a tiller's nice because it actually chews it up. But even just just turning it over with a fork or a garden shovel, it'll rot underground. Next spring, when you go to work that soil, first of all, you've mulched that into it, you've irrigated it, put air into it, and the idea that stuff will rot and break down as a compost.
Okay. Because I haven't had success in previous years because I probably haven't been doing it correctly. But if I lay it out, spread it out, and in good time with this year, and chop it up and turn it in with the soil this year, by next spring it should be.
It will break down.
It will.
You'll have problems like with corn stalks,
Okay.
but they will break down.
Okay.
You can smash them up as they dry.
Okay.
But everything you take out of that garden is something that's not there.
Right.
Like it took nutrients to grow that corn plant or whatnot that you're going to carry away and dispose of. So if you put it back in, as farmers, we, besides cutting for green feed or straw sometimes, but we try and take it over different fields.
Yeah.
We put everything back into it. Okay, and if we have cattle, well, of course we'll take the waste from the cattle and we put that back in. So it all breaks down.
Okay. So every little bit helps.
Everything you take out, put back in if you can.
Okay. Except tomatoes, potatoes, and portulaca.
Portulaca.
Okay. So I have some grass clippings left over, in the fall. Typically I do, and then I even had some compost. I had some really nice compost that I used in the spring. Should I be putting that on top of my, my plants that I pulled out and that I laid out there and waiting to decompose? Can I put that on top and mix everything in too?
You could mix everything in. Grass trimmings are excellent.
Okay.
Big thing as long as you haven't used chemical or fertilizer.
Okay.
If you use a weed chemical or a
Pesticide?
pesticide is for anything like that, you don't want that in your garden.
Okay.
Okay, because you are what you eat.
Right.
Okay, but the idea, if the grass trimmings are just natural grass, if you put your compost if you do your own composting, and people can do that. There's composters, or you can just even make a little pile. But learn how to work that compost. Okay, you put on a production of this on how to do it, about turning it using water and whatnot, and you can break plant material back down to dirt.